Truth be told, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm what you call an intrapreneur. Coming up with ideas for my product suite. How could we integrate it? How could we market it? How could we answer the queries that people were asking online and the research that I was doing within an existing organization structure?
You are organizing your company now. How is it different from the large organization?
So from everything that I learned working from corporates, I removed the BS and built an optimized hosting company. There's agility versus bureaucracy. So with the corporates, it does take time. You do have to get buy-in. But when you run your own company, you're agile to get your ideas implemented a lot quicker. You don't have different levels of approval that you have to go through. You can be dynamic. You can go with your own instinct. But I always felt the UAE is 5 years behind. You know, if a new technology comes out, people in Eastern Europe and America and the UK, they would take that technology and hack it. And how can I utilize it to make a product? Whereas here, it wasn't like that back in 2018. It was like, I'm going to wait for a consultant to tell me what button to press. Consolidation is always there. It's history repeating itself. If someone gets acquired, you're like, oh no, support's going to go down, prices are going to go up. When those guys have to deal with that, you get innovators coming up who start new hosting companies that take away the pain points that the old guys have and they start growing.
So it actually creates the opportunity by itself.
Correct. So when people get acquired and consolidation happens, innovation happens.
My guest is Wahid Aziz, CEO of Tasjeel.ae, the fastest growing .ae domain registrar and a leading web hosting provider in the UAE. He started his journey as an entrepreneur after more than 15 years in the domain and hosting industry, where he built and grew products for companies like Host Europe Group, Paragon Internet Group and LeaseWeb. In this episode, we talk about Wahid's shift from corporate life to running his own company, why small teams win at support, how the UAE creates space for bold moves, and the potential of hosting providers as the first stop for anyone going online. Before we move forward, I want to say a big thank you to the companies supporting us. First of all, our diamond sponsor Blackwall, infrastructure security built for web hosters, engineered for engineers. Also, recognition goes to our gold sponsors, Name Hero and Panalpha. Thanks to these guys, we can grow web hosting today. If you'd like to be part of it, just reach out. Wahid, thank you for joining, and really looking forward into this interview because you have a different background than the typical founder of a hosting company that's been building their business for 20 years and learning things step by step. You have a little bit different background, so I'm very interested in your perspective in building business and what do you think about the industry. So let's start with the basics and tell us about your story.
Absolutely. So Conrad, thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm really excited to have this chat with you. Truth be told, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm what you call an intrapreneur. And my career in the hosting industry started in 2009 when I worked for 123reg and WebFusion, which was the largest domain registrar in the UK. It was part of GX Networks. And if you look at Wikipedia, there's a Wikipedia page on Host Europe Group. You will see from like the 2000s, it's changed names, it's been acquired, it's sold parts of it changed its name again. So I would just say, check out the Wikipedia page on Host Europe Group. But I joined it in 2009 and I was hired by the awesome and infamous Matt Barry, who had worked for the likes of Network Solutions and 1&1. He was hired to build a product management team for 123reg and WebFusion, which was called GX Networks then. Now is Oakley Capital, who I'm sure you've heard of. And I was one of his hires. And I was there looking after the products to do with servers and software as a service. And actually, interestingly, I'm famous for leaving the company twice and coming back. So I've worked in the Host Europe sphere 3 times and I've left twice. Initially, I was headhunted by the amazing Thorsten Einig to work in Amsterdam for LeaseWeb, to work with him in product management and bolster their products and services to their base because they were very server-centric. So it was about looking at the other options available into a global market that needed servers from LeaseWeb. And then for some mutual reasons, I came back to Host Europe Group. I'll just refer to them as Host Europe Group because that's the last name that they're known by. And I left again to go and work with my current business partner and his ex-founders, Seb, Adam, Darren, and Dom, who's my business partner at Paragon Internet Group. And Paragon Internet Group was a company that in a saturated market in the UK were making a name for themselves. They were really, really, really growing fast. And then the last time that I went back, my original boss, Matt Barry, went back to Host Europe Group, and he reached out to me and said, "Look, Wahid, group wide product management role and equity on the table. What do you say?" And it was a hard thing to say no to. So then I went back,
Okay.
and I was there for my third stint until it was acquired by GoDaddy in at the end of 2016 for 1.69 billion. And then
Okay.
I was there for a year, took out the equity, and that brings me to my here and now, which is actually interesting. So I had a conversation with Adam and Seb after I had left Host Europe Group about the Middle East market, because when they had hired me, I told them about the Middle East and that, there's a really interesting opportunity in the UAE, and they were totally game for it. But because they were growing crazily in the UK, they were like, "Look, we hear your idea, it's great. Let's park it. Let's focus on what we've got to do now in the UK, and then let's pick it up later." And then, I'd left, gone back to Host Europe Group, had a different strategy. But from that point, the Middle East has always been in my mind. And when I spoke to them about the idea again, they were like, "Look, we can't do anything about it, but you should have a chat with Dominic, because Dom's been out of the hosting industry for a while. He's looking to come back in, have a conversation." And I called Dom. I said, "Look, Dom, I got a crazy idea." And I told him what I knew about the Middle East and what I'm seeing, and what I think the opportunity is. He liked the idea. He was up for it. He said, "Let's go and find out some more information." And luckily, there was the Middle East DNS Forum in 2017 in Abu Dhabi. ICANN, sorry, it was an ICANN event. Dom and I went down. I showed him the country, what I knew. He could see what the UAE was doing, how it was progressing, how it was super clean, how businesses are coming together.
So you showed them the buildings, and he said, "Yeah, let's do it." Or
Well,
like,
it wasn't the buildings.
What was in it?
It wasn't the buildings. It was actually the use of the .ae domain name. It was the
All
use
right.
of the .ae domain
Okay.
name in advertising and people promoting themselves, as well as the country being safe and clean and people doing business here happily, not stressed.
Yeah.
At that time, there was no VAT, right? So there was
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and low taxes. But when we did take it over, we had to pay VAT straight away because we acquired it in May, and then VAT started in June. But essentially, we checked out the UAE. He was like, "Look, I love it. Let's do something." So we started a brand called funkycamel.ae. And within a year,
All right.
Conrad, we got to page 1, position 8 on Google for .ae domain names. And we had a discussion about, how can we speed our time to market? How can we grow ourselves quicker? There was a couple of local players that weren't really doing much, and we came in to disrupt. And there was this one brand called Tasjeel.ae, which I had no idea who the owner was. I could only find a Tumblr article with his name. Really, this guy kept
Okay.
himself hidden. And there's Munir from AE Server, and there was a couple other players. But anyway, I went to go and see my uncle who worked for TRA, the Telecommunication Regulatory Authority. He was a director general at that time. And I wanted to present to him what we were doing with Funky Camel, and did he have any guidance points or things that could help us, like, speed up our kind of market share or what we're doing. And randomly at the end, I said to him, "Look, do you know who owns Tezjul.ae? Like, I can't find this guy." And he just looked at his phone and he went, "Here you go. There's his
Okay.
number."
Okay.
Formulated a message to him, sent him a message. He responded back saying, "Look, a couple of people are interested in acquiring me. I'm looking to get out the game now. I've been doing it for about 9 years or whatever at the time." And he's like,
What was the timing? I mean, it sounds like a very perfect timing for all of this, right?
"Yeah, exactly." It was, well, we finished the acquisition in 2018, May 2018. But it was
Oh,
it
yeah.
was when it's meant to be, Conrad, it's meant to be. It was just boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. Speaking to Dom, coming to the UAE, starting Funky Camel, working on that super hard, and then having the chat about Tezjil, going to see my uncle randomly to, not randomly, but the Tezjil part was random, right? But about the
Yeah.
strategy that we wanted to do with Funky Camel and just get his advice. And we met the founder of Tezjil.ae, and you know, luckily, or everything aligned, he chose to sell to us, and the rest is history.
Wow. Okay. So it doesn't sound like a coincidence. It's actually a cool story itself. Yeah, but that's the interesting part, is that again, you have not been the founder from the very beginning. It's like a very typical story in this industry is that you founded your company in 2003 or 2005, and then in the 20 years it grew and grew, and you learned from the very basic stuff, right? You had a huge experience in the large company, right?
Correct. Correct. So I took my learnings from the people that I was surrounded by. Like I said, my mentor Matt Barry taught me a lot about product management. The awesome Tobias Moore,
Yeah.
who was the CFO of Host Your Group, taught me financial literacy and diplomacy. And when I worked for Seb, Adam, Dom, and Darren, what they taught me was you could be a founder, and even if you're growing crazy and your market share is going big and you're hiring a lot of staff, you're still involved in the business. I mean, these guys are working till 9, 10 o'clock, and then they're in the office the next day at 6 a.m. doing support tickets, fixing servers. And actually, I've taken that with me to Tasjeel.ae. And you're correct. My approach has been, my route to owning my own company and running my own company has been different. And like I said in the beginning,
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is someone who innovates within an existing organization structure. And that was purely because of product management and what Matt was building with the product management team. The other teams were disconnected. Finance did one thing, marketing did one thing, support, no one really spoke to, management did that, but
Yeah.
somehow it worked, right? Because it was built by techies and then people carried it on. And with product management, it centralized everything. It became a command center. So we were
Mhm.
the owners of our products, we were the customer's voice, and we were liaising with finance, support, management, marketing to really put the vision together and push it all the way through from concept to launch.
Mhm. So more like a streamlined strategy based on the product,
Exactly. And
and
I was
not.
innovating, right? So kind of like an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur again within an existing organization structure where coming up with
Mhm.
ideas for my product suite, how could we integrate it? How could we market it? How could we, answer the queries that people were asking online and the research that I was doing and listening to customer support. So putting that all together is kind of entrepreneurial, right? It's like in Modules Garden, let's say Metrics Cube. You had a staff member who came up with Metrics Cube. He looked at the different hosting companies, what were they doing. He took a WHMCS account or made an account with each of them. And he's like, these guys have something missing. They don't have their
Yeah.
data. These small guys who are using WHMCS don't actually know their financial information, that when someone wants to acquire them, they don't know what to say. They
Yeah.
have to go and figure it out. So imagine that person who doesn't have equity in the business, isn't a founder, came up with the idea and then launched it within Module Gardens, and people are buying it and loving it, right?
Yeah, well, that's the different sort of mentality. Than I guess when you are in a large corporation, your ideas don't really get through as common when you are just in a smaller organization, or as in your case, if you have your ideas and you now have your own company, you're driven by those ideas. It's the philosophy that your company is following when you have the product in the in the root of it.
I put my thanks to the structure that Matt Barry put for the product management team. I put it down to learning to influence, how to pitch, how to get buy-in. So you can do that stuff within a big organization, but it takes a strong character. It
Yeah.
takes a strong trust in what you're doing and what your vision is, right? So if you have a project, you're going banging on the doors of the different departments to get buy-in. Once you get buy-in, you're then banging on the doors to get the requirements with development, what can be done, what can't be done. If it's with a third-party supplier, what can they do, what APIs do they have? And you're banging on the doors of everyone down the chain to get that it's concept that you research and that you define and that you envision all the way to launch and people using it and supporting it.
Hmm. Right. And so, but other than the product itself, like in terms of how you are organizing your company now, how is it different from the large organization? Like, I guess, so you having this whole experience in big firm, you have your own now. What's the difference in structure in organizing it?
So from everything that I learned working from corporates, I removed the BS and built a optimized hosting company.
What's else than the BS then?
Well, kind of what I alluded to, there's agility versus bureaucracy. So with the corporates, it like you said, it does take time. You do have to get buy-in. But when you run your own company, you're agile to get your ideas implemented a lot quicker. You don't have different levels of approval that you have to go through. You can be
Hmm.
dynamic. You can go with your own instinct, right? When you try to go with your own instinct as a product manager or a product person, you have different people that can try and knock you down. They try to delay things. But when you own your own business compared to a corporate, you can go with your instinct. You can test things quickly. You can implement it. You can reverse it without, the corporate typical thing
No.
of, oh, that was a terrible idea. You should be fired. You're like, you have a conversation with yourself. Okay, that didn't work. Let's adapt and make it better.
Yeah,
And
but at the
then,
same time, you take all the risk, right? It's also the risk that you have to take.
exactly.
But that's exciting for me. That's exciting. It's something that I just want.
Yeah. And for me as well, I was able to do a customer centric approach. In corporates, your roadmap is essentially defined by management. It's a top down thing. You
Mm,
and the other product managers and the other people having projects can justify it, but ultimately it comes down to higher management's decision on what happens with the roadmap. And they don't always build or choose things to do that are customer centric. It's built for scale or
mhm,
profitability, right? So then we flip that and we focus on solving problems, Domini, right? So, when we took over Tasjeel.ae, within 30 days, we had a new order process, new website. We launched more domain extensions, more hosting packages, email hosting, website builder, all within 30 days. Tasjeel at that
okay.
point in time only sold the .ae domain name and one unlimited hosting plan, right? So we took our experience and what we know, and Dom's amazing from a technical side, from an infrastructure and building systems point of view, and I came in from the product and marketing point of view, and that married together to really take our experience and turn it into Tezjil.ae, what it is today. Because Tezjil in the beginning was like number two, and then over the years it was just going down, down, and down, right? And people
Okay.
were not happy, and we came in, and we one of the first things we did was just send an email to everyone. Guys, it's under new management. We see that you've had some bad experiences. We've gone through the tickets. We've updated systems. We've launched new domain extensions. We've launched new hosting packages. If you have any issues, this is our email addresses. Contact us. Yeah, and
All
that
right.
started the ball. That started to show people, hey, there's a new kid in town, and they're doing something
Yeah.
different. And again, with the customer centric approach, listening to them, we fixed things that they needed, right?
Okay. Which is actually interesting because me as being sometimes the customer of a web hosting company, if I see that there's a new management or someone has acquired my hosting company, I already think about getting out because I know what's going
Yeah,
to happen, right? So it's it's the good thing that happened for these customers, which converted into now being that you are guys number one,
correct.
and
But
by a,
just
by a by a big one as far as I recall, right?
cool. But I just wanted to also say something about the corporate to what I'm doing now. There's the thing about the culture. So when you're in a corporate, you inherit the culture that they have, right? Whether it's like
Hmm.
Christmas parties or something that you do once a month or whatever. At Tasjeel.ae, I was able to start from scratch. I was able to say, what culture do I want to bring? And I came up with this mantra, which is support is not a department, it's an attitude. So that anyone
Hmm.
that I hire has to go through support, even if they're in other departments. But we're mainly just, support people that are there to really be involved with the customer, have a collaborative
Yeah.
approach to resolving issues. We all speak on Slack in general. You have access to Dom and I straight away as support staff for final decisions or fixes or things that you don't have access to get done straight away. And actually, I took that from Media Temple, another company that GoDaddy had acquired. And Media Temple was web
Okay.
designer focused. But what I always took from them is that their support staff was level one, two, and three. It wasn't, you speak to level one, then you got to escalate to level two, and then you got to escalate to level three. No, all my staff are mainly one, two, and almost three, right? So some of them are mostly one and two, but we do have ones that can do level three things, and it's our ethos, it's our mantra, and that sticks with us. We're all about supporting the customer and having access to Domini in a quick fashion to get things sorted or resolved or for a decision to be made.
That's also interesting because it's not the first time that I hear is that you cannot really be good in your business, in your product, if your employees are not connected with the customers, right? It's an approach where how can you deliver a good product to the end customer when you don't have that connection with them? You don't understand their needs, their problems that they are having. So that philosophy should be the standard anywhere.
Well, when I've hired people, the bigger guys turn staff into robots. It's all scripted answers because as you scale and
Yeah.
you get bigger, you can't take care of every edge case, right? You can't take care
Yeah.
of, the person that you hire as a supervisor or a support head. I've seen in organizations where they've hired a support manager and he's just a glorified therapist. He wasn't hosting related. He couldn't install
Yeah.
WordPress. He couldn't fix an issue. He couldn't like get in with the customer. He would just deal with people's problems or the schedule. But and I know I mentioned them a lot, even when I speak offline and when we've spoken. But what Dom, Seb, Adam, and Darren did different was that even though they were growing crazy, they were still involved with support. They did tickets, they
Hmm.
fixed things, and they grew to a really really good size before they got acquired by Host Europe Group. And it just goes to your point, right? You can do it. It is a struggle. It can't scale to like super high corporate levels, but if someone can figure it out, they happy days. But again, to your
Yeah.
point, people big companies make their stuff like robots, follow a script. They don't
Yeah.
have flexibility. And when I hire my people, it sometimes takes a long time to break them out of that cycle because they're like, you know, they're responding in Shakespeare language. Dear customer, I will give you my firstborn son because the website was down for 1 minute. And that's just not my style. I would rather them know the standards of what we respond to certain things, but they got to put their own personality. That's really important.
Hmm. And then it also feels that they are more connected to the customer, which is also like the way that you should do the thing, right? So going back to your position number one on the market, so you've entered in Tasjeel in 2018,
Correct.
and then you changed the way the whole company operates. You've reached out to the customers, and eventually you guys got number one by a big time, right? But how was this process going on in terms of, like, okay, you had some customer base, right? But how did it happen that you were able to scale it up so much so fast?
So the UAE is the true land of opportunity. And what we did, we capitalized on it to become number one. You know, and to give you some high level information that you alluded to, because in this region, it's not common to share exact stats or call people out, right? But you know,
Yeah.
you know, when I was at 123 Reg and they had 3 million domain names, they were averaging 20% market share on average, right? And my target for 2025 was to have 20% market share. I'm happy to say that we've exceeded that, in terms of net new domain names. And when you look at our competitors, the next closest one is just shy of half of what we do in terms of net new domains. Yeah. And when it comes
Okay.
to domains, active domains, we are number two, but in our current trajectory or run rate, sorry, within I think the 2 to 4 year mark will be number one in total domains under management for .ae. And
Wow.
you
Wow.
know, it takes a lot of hard work, but you know, like you've talked to other people in your podcast, like Seb or Munir or Wensons or Simon from BaseKit, who I know and they're all great guys. Uh, I feel that what we did was take our experience from the West and apply it to Middle East. Right, my family has been here since like the 70s, and I always wanted to give back to kind of my Middle Eastern people, let's say, right. The,
Hmm.
the the experience I had to have automated, simplified products, but it's not just us, right? The growth that we've seen is because of the government of the UAE. The government has taken a digital first approach with government services. Yeah, so reducing the paperwork, doing things on apps or doing things on the website, and that has essentially
Mm-hmm.
trickled down to semi-government departments. It's then trickled down to how businesses, and then it's trickled down to how new entrepreneurs and new businesses want to get online. They get online digital first, right? And that's really helped our growth in one section because the government's leading the way, and the TDRA, which is our regulator, man, I've dealt with some of the other registries. The AE registry is the best of all. Flexible, they keep the namespace safe. And what I mean by that, you as a business, if someone tried to register your domain name fraudulently and you registered your company before they did that, right? They will get involved to get it
Mm-hmm.
sorted out. They will ask for the evidences from both sides and make a decision, for the consumer.
Okay.
You as a consumer, like Labubu, issue I had to deal with. Someone had the Instagram page for Lububu. Someone had the domain name. Someone wasn't selling it, but the AE authority came in. They took the information from the consumers that were getting fraudulently that were getting scammed. Basically, they were buying Lububu stuff
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
weren't getting it, and they took down the domain name. And what that in
Okay.
turn has done has put so much trust in the .ae domain name. That's why you see people advertising it happily on their cars, on billboards, or outside their shop, because there is that element of trust in the local market. Yeah, like don't get me wrong, people have other
Okay.
extensions like .com and .me and .co and stuff like that. But for people to cause differentiation and to have the trust in the local market, they do promote themselves with the .e more so now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and with that part being done, so the government takes the digital first approach, so it's leading the way. Yeah. On the
Yeah.
second hand, they are allowing people to come in easily to open up businesses. Yeah. And
Yeah, and that's the big part of the buy now, to just invite, uh, like, welcome money, people with money as well, right? It's also part of the strategy to make it as a hub for the entire region.
actually, no. So Sheikh Zayed, God rest his soul, the founding father, was
Okay.
entrepreneurial, right? So when oil hit in 1958, instead of squandering it, he decided to put it back into the country to build the infrastructure and to look after his people, right? So in
Okay.
one sense, you can say like it's about being people with money, but it's not really that. If you listen to Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, it's all about the entrepreneurial spirit. So what Sheikh Zayed did,
Yeah.
being
Okay.
entrepreneur, yeah,
Maybe I said a little bit too far. I mean, yeah. I mean, people who want to do things. It is about money at the end, right? When you're
correct.
making a business, right? But the government attracts people from all over the world
That are
to
smart
come
thinking,
and
that
make.
want to make their way, that want to do good
That's
business,
right.
that are customer centric. All government departments have a happy center team, right? That you can go and complain to. And the leadership for
Okay.
all the federal different things like the post or water or AC or whatever, he calls them out. They get rated. Yeah. So it's that
Okay.
it's like from the government, but welcoming the people and making business easy and making the facilities easy. I guess you could say we're in the right place at the right time with what we do, giving good support and our secret sauce with marketing. And initially our growth came from word of mouth. We didn't market for many years, right? Marketing only came in 2-3 years ago, and then it just went further because we
Yeah,
just
that's actually what I wanted to ask. So your growth is mostly because of word of mouth and providing good service. That was the foundation of
initially,
your
yes.
success.
Initially
Yeah.
it was purely word of mouth, some PPC, and then actually it was Andreas Galga who was one of the founders of One and One. I didn't work with him, but I was able to meet with him and have a chat. And I asked him one question about competitors, and he gave me one piece of advice about how to handle competitors, and I've used that ever since. Again, it's a secret sauce, but I thought I'd give you a little bit of a tidbit.
Uh,
Uh,
I was hoping for some answers here.
Sorry, not on that one, because
All
we,
right.
we may be riding at number one for domain names and growing crazily, but the only way is down now, right? So we have to work really hard to keep ourselves on top. But going back to
Okay.
the UAE, so I explained the two parts that I feel: the government and the welcoming of people to come in and do business and have that entrepreneurial mindset that you can do stuff yourself. Low taxes, no personal tax, but there's VAT, and now there's corporate tax. But when
No, but
Dom and
there's
I,
also security, right? There's security on the business level and trust in the like digital part of business in UAE, right?
Yeah, well, that's coming to my point. So when Dom and I came in, and what I always felt with the UAE, because I've been coming here since I was two. If you look at my passport, it's just London, Abu Dhabi, London, Abu Dhabi all the time. Every holiday, just coming to the UAE because family's here, right? But I always felt the UAE is 5 years behind us in the West in terms of domain and hosting, right? It was always
Okay.
slower to adopt. If a new technology comes out, people in Eastern Europe and America and the UK, they would take that technology and hack it. And how can I utilize it to make a product? Whereas here, it wasn't like that back in 2018. It was like, I'm going to wait for a consultant to tell me what button to press. But
Right.
around that time as well is when expats started coming in. Arabic speaking and English speaking expats, non Arabic speaking expats started to come in, and they're aware of domains and hosting, and they wanted to launch businesses in the UAE. They couldn't get their .com. There's over 346 million .com registered. You couldn't really get your name. So then we were in the right place at the right time to provide those facilities in a good, solid way that people looking for those services found us, and then used us and were happy with us and happy with the hosting platform and the infrastructure and the support, and recommended and it grew and grew. And an interesting tidbit, maybe you don't know, the word Tasjeel actually means registration. So our brand name is
Yeah.
registration.ae. So the Arabic speaking world that also knew English and coming from other places around the world, when they see the brand, it makes sense to them, registration.ae. So they would come to us and
Okay.
register domain names.
Easy name. Easy name.
And with regards to the digital first approach, this is also expanding across the GCC. So the other GCC countries have seen what Dubai has done and the UAE has done, and is also adopting that digital first approach, which will then hopefully trickle down. We're accredited for .bh for Bahrain. We're looking at the other accreditations for Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, Saudi, but they are all taking this digital first approach. So there's definitely the opportunities to take what we've done in the UAE and that secret sauce and expand it out. you know and with that, there is some differences with the GCC. So the accreditation process isn't as smooth with the others as it is with the
Okay.
UAE, and the processes for opening up businesses and stuff like that isn't the same as here. There are hurdles, but we've put a lot of effort, and it's been a long journey to understand the intricacies of the region and how to get in and how to set up, that we are overcoming those obstacles, and I'm really excited for the future.
So they are catching up, but do you think they will be? So they are looking at UAE and like trying to do the same in terms of like, I don't know, joining it in terms of like a hub itself, or making their name in the region. Like, what's their strategy in your
So a
view?
lot of people around the GCC want to be in the UAE, and they are in the UAE. So they expand their businesses here. So they'll have a .ae domain name, for example, right? And then they're servicing the,
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the GCC. So, a lot of the Arabic countries want to be in the UAE, right? And they do business in the UAE because of the Gulf Cooperation Council. It's easy to, come in and come out and do business and get things delivered. So it works, but there are some tricky parts. But they
Mm-hmm.
have seen what the UAE has done and what it's become, and they are now adopting the elements, especially the digital first transformation that the other governments
Okay.
are doing. And then ease of business isn't the same as here, but it is catching up.
All right. Right.
And that's what makes it really different from the West, right? The Western world is definitely saturated. There's so many hosting companies. There's so many different players
No.
in our
Yeah.
space providing services. Here, there's a few players, and they're not really taking care of the local base. They'll have other Western companies will just have like a domain name or a sub page that's for this market, for another market, and then they have to deal with them if they support requests, but they're not focused on this region like we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So also what I wanted to ask is that so .ae domain, but overall, like if your customer base is mostly um, expats or Arabic people, like what's the trend looking at your growth or your customer base?
So I think with every hosting company, you have a spectrum. We have the mom and pop shop, the blogger, all the way to government departments like Abu Dhabi Tourism or Dubai Police that have domain names, and the property development companies. So we have a plethora of customers, and it is a wide spectrum. But that's common
Hmm.
in the domain name and hosting industry. There's not one niche. But I would say when I look at whois.com, when I see a domain name on the street or something, the older brick and mortar companies, they would be with the guys that were there before. But the newer companies that are Instagram businesses but have a domain name that forward to Instagram and have a professional email address, or the people that I see advertising on TikTok
Yeah.
and the newer like pop-up places, they tend to be registered with us, which is really, really cool. Yeah, like there's a company called
Okay.
Washman.ae where they come and pick up your laundry, they deliver it within 1 or 2 days, and it's all done via an app, and they're really, really cool. Or eCar, and
Okay.
and eCar's like, you book a car, it's parked somewhere, and then you drive it somewhere else, and then you drop it. Like those companies, those newer, funkier companies, that there are a lot, especially since the pandemic when it really shot
Oh
up,
yeah.
right? They're mainly with us.
Okay. So also going on back on your expansion to those other regions, what's the hot thing happening from the, let's say, web hosting industry that you feel is hot out there? I know that you have competition and they look at your moves, but like what's your focus right now outside UAE, and like what do you think that's the most interesting now?
For us, it's very simple. It's about expanding our mantra, right? It's expanding our secret. It's expanding us to the rest of the region. If someone's already there, we'll come in and disrupt it. Yeah, it's
All
just
right.
it's just what we're gonna do. We just do things different. If there isn't any main players there, then we will enter and provide what we do. So it's not a strategy as in um, not like a hostile takeover, but what I want to do is take what we do because it's working here and apply that to the other GCC countries in a way that those consumers can benefit. Because the truth be told, when I look at our customer base, we already have customers from those other countries, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
Bahrain, Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, even further from Africa, America, England, Australia. We have customers from all over the world. But our speciality is the Middle Eastern market. And it's just about taking what we do simply, launching it into those markets. Um, I still don't know whether it's about the multi-brand approach or one brand approach. That is an argument that I have with myself and I discuss with Dom regularly. Do we go with a different
Okay.
brand? Do we take the same brand? How should we do it? And in Qatar, for example, we started funkycamel.qa, to look after that market. It's a
Okay.
funky name, it's something different. It's about being playful, and that's
Yeah.
doing okay. It's just started like a few months ago, nothing crazy, but again, with not being in a corporate, we can be agile, and that's what we're doing with the different
Yeah.
markets. It's about being agile, looking at what they do, but do it with a good foundation.
Hmm. Can we also talk a little bit more about the customers itself? Like, because I imagine that the customers in GCC have a little different mentality than the guys. I know that the guys from Europe or US are coming to UAE, but like given that your customers are mostly guys from that region, like, what are the main differences compared to making business in Europe or US?
So we are online only, right? So we have a different approach where people come and find us and they buy. I would say
Okay.
there are cultural differences in what people expect in terms of support. So it would be very common to call a company. We don't have telephone
Okay.
support. Yeah, and Tezil didn't have
Okay.
telephone support from the beginning, and I've kept it the same. So we do have people that get frustrated about, why can't I speak to you? And we just tell
So
them,
they have the need of like closer contact with someone they're making business with, right?
yeah, correct. But the difference with us is that once you buy from us and you see how quick we respond or how we deal with things, or that we're dealing in the background with four things at the same time, but trying to do first time resolution for all, people don't care. But there is that element that pops up sometimes. So I would say that's probably
Hmm.
a weakness that our customers may look at us, but it's not a weakness with in terms of how we're dealing with the majority of our customers or people that are wanting to sign up to us, because they do sign up in the end. Not everyone, yeah, because some people really do want the telephone, so they'll find another hosting company for that. But the people that do look past it, they have a great experience with us, whether it's on live chat or whether it's on ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
again,
Okay.
to go to your point with the differences, the reason why we don't see it so much is because we don't have that direct interaction. We don't have that face to face. We don't have that phone call where online speak to us, and a consumer in the UAE will have the same questions as someone in Poland or the UK. Shall I get the CCTLD? Shall I get a .com instead? What's your hosting packages? What features do you have? Are you going to overcharge me on renewal, which a lot of people do nowadays, right? Do you only give things free of charge for the first year? And we don't do that, man. We're a proper nice hosting company. We're fair to our customers, and our customers are fair to us. But
Mm-hmm.
is there differences in the way that in general people do business in the UAE to the West? Yes, there definitely is. It's more face to face. It's more, what can I say? Sometimes it takes longer. There's a lot of introduction that you need to make in order to close someone. There is a way of how you approach someone. You can't go really direct or boisterous. It's just say, what the hell,
Okay.
what the
Okay.
hell do you think you're playing at? It's definitely a longer period to gain people's trust, and for them to buy into what you're doing and trust you to then work with you.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so let's now talk global about web hosting. You have been here for so long. What's your point of view about web hosting industry? It's 2025. It's been what's 16 years. What changes do you see in the industry? What risks? What opportunities? What do you think in general about the space?
All about consolidation and innovation. History repeats itself. And the way that I look at it is, eh, consolidation is always there. When I started that Web Fusion 123 Edge in 2009, it was America that was consolidating. The different small hosting companies were being bought up and being put into a group. After that, it was
Yeah.
Australia that was being consolidated. After Australia, it was Europe, what we did at Host Europe Group, buying 20, 30, 40 companies and putting them into Host Europe Group. After I left Host Europe Group, it was the Nordic region that is being consolidated, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the Middle East is not consolidated yet, but when they do come to consolidate, they'll meet me, and it'll be an interesting conversation. I'm only joking, but really, I feel that in the history of in the hosting industry, consolidation is always there. It's history repeating itself. But from that
Mm-hmm.
consolidation, you have innovation that pops up. And what I mean by that is, when the really good smaller guys get snapped up by the bigger guys, and like you said, if someone gets acquired, you're like, oh no, support's going to go down, prices are going to go up. When those guys have to deal with that, you get innovators coming up who start new hosting companies that take away the pain points that the old guys have, and they start growing. Yeah. But
Yeah.
also
So
you
it
get
actually creates the opportunity by itself, right?
correct,
By the nature.
correct. But also you get people like Sander from CloudPress, right? Where, yeah, he's using hosting and he sells cPanel and stuff like that, but he's seen a gap and he's like, WordPress, everyone else isn't doing it great. I'm annoyed with how people are doing it. I'm going to build my solution for WordPress and I'm going to sell that. So when people
Yeah.
get acquired and consolidation happens, innovation happens, right? You
Yeah.
got you got control panel being built. A couple of people are building control panels, right? So that's a new innovation that's coming up. It's a big challenge to do a control
It
panel,
is, yeah.
but you know what? It's needed. There are people innovating in this space. You've got Adam at Enhanced doing it. I believe you're also doing something with control panels as well. And there's other
All
people.
right.
There's other people that are doing it, and that drives innovation because you see what the other guys are doing, and you're like, this is bloated now. It makes no sense. I'm going to build something leaner, faster, and better. And you come in as a disruptor. And then
Yeah.
for me, there's something I like to call integration. So I loved GoDaddy when it was under Blake Irvin, because Blake was a product guy. And I
Okay.
hope he writes a book about his time in product management, because I would read it. He really wanted to make GoDaddy, and did make GoDaddy, a technology company like Dell, not a domain and hoster. So they were
Mm-hmm.
integrating with third party people, and then they were acquiring people, right? So GoDaddy, I feel, from my perspective, wants to be a technology company. They acquire it, they integrate it
Yeah.
into their solution, and then they give it out to the customer. So we're not a domain or hoster. We're not using third parties. We're using our own stuff. And they did that when they bought Securi. They did that when they bought some other people to do with marketing or the website stuff. And you see them, they're promoting the Aero thing. So they really want to go down the technology route. And that's another new thing that's happening in our space, I feel. The guys at World Host Group with Sem and Dom, if there's anyone that can do it good with a good control panel, integrate these things, it's going to be those guys, really. And
Hostinger is also very interesting in terms of technology. They have their own way of doing things. They are pretty innovative in
right, the H panel is really cool. It's really good.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean. Consolidation was happening in Europe when at the Host Europe time, and that Host Europe group, sorry, and that's like kind of allowed for other things to come up and other things to spur. And that's my perspective of the industry, is that you're always going to have consolidation happening. You're always going to get innovation coming up. But then you've got this integration part, which is how do we differentiate ourselves and make ourselves better? And it's either by integrating with SaaS solutions and plugging it into what you do, or it's going to be acquiring those solutions and making it part of what you do and going to market with that. Because the truth is, in the life cycle of someone who wants a digital presence, a domain and hosting registrar is closer, they start with a domain and hosting provider sooner than they go to Zoho for their accounting or for their books or CRM, right? We are the people that get the customer at the beginning and have that trust. Now, my perspective is I'd rather be a niche. Instead of being everything to everyone and being nothing to no one, I would rather focus on what we do and do it very, very well. And then start taking products that are close to our core and launching those things to consumers, and not like, all right, we're going to do accounting software now. It makes no sense. Unless the hosting provider and domain registrar, or if it's a corporate, really puts backing into that solution. Yeah, like Blake Irving did it with like the telephone, for SMB. So you can have like two telephone numbers, right? You know who your phone calls from your customers are to, your normal phone calls. And, I think what could be interesting is that hosting companies become technology companies and have a solution for consumers to have a really good digital presence. So if I summarize, I think it's always going to be consolidation, innovation, and then integrations. I would say that. And I'm excited for the future to see what will happen. And with that, it's like a time to reflect, right? And I hope you wouldn't mind, because I look at your podcast as a timestamp on the internet of speaking to you, because when we took over Tasjeel.ae, I've really just focused being in the background. I haven't been at the forefront as much anymore. And I'd really like
That's
to take
your opportunity. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd really like to take the chance to say thank you to a few people, if that's okay. So definitely my mentor, Matt Barry, to Seb, Adam, and Darren, who, really taught me about the support element of being part of your business and really being part of the business to fix those solutions for customers. There's Tobias Moore, there's Richard Winslow, there's Thorsten Einig, there's Chris Hudson, who, with Chris Hudson, we did an epic deal for SSL certificates, and that put my name on the map at Host Europe Group. There's Tom Serrani, who's cut from a different cloth. He's an epic guy with epic deals and epic go-to-market strategies. Soren von Bachmann, with the amount of industry knowledge that he has and the experiences that he has, I really hope he writes a book, because I would pre-order 100 of them.
All right, yeah.
Dave Mears, Freak Dix, teamwork makes the dream work. And guys, I'll tell you something, I will never forget Austin. Austin was absolutely amazing. And then last but not least, and I couldn't end the meeting without saying thank you to Dominic Taylor, who's my business partner at Tezil.ae. Dom is an absolute perfect blend of techie geek with business. And, what we've done here together in Tasjeel.ae is something amazing. And I look forward to taking over the Middle East with him, and providing our customers a great experience with domains and hosting.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I hope. I mean, that's also something that and we often forget is to really appreciate that the reason why you are here is because you met certain people at certain moment in your life. So that's great that you don't forget about them.
Yeah,
And also I would wish that we can invite them sometime to share their stories to the podcast, some of
that
them
would be
at
very
least.
cool. But again, and it comes down to my journey, right? I was an entrepreneur who met a lot of people in the industry, made great friends, great discussions, and yeah, it's important to just at this point in time reflect and say thank you, and let's see what the future brings.
Let's end with that. Thank you, Wahid, for the interview. Very insightful, and I hope it's going to be giving a lot of insights to people from the industry
I
and
hope
maybe
so.
give them some ideas.
And thank you, Conrad, for inviting me to the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best with it. I think it's going to be an excellent, excellent piece of the internet that people are going to come to for information.